You're listening to Matters of Engagement, a podcast examining issues at the intersection of health, healthcare, and society. I'm Jennifer Johannesson.
And I'm Emily Nicholas Angle.
We're excited to bring you this 3-episode series on patient partner acknowledgement, produced in collaboration with the Siden Research Team, located at the BC Children's Hospital Research Institute in Vancouver.
Recently, the Siden team has been interested in understanding more about how patients and parents contribute to pediatric health research, as partners, as collaborators, and as co-authors. How is patient and parent partnership conducted? And how is it represented in the literature?
Sounds like a straightforward exercise. It's actually far from it.
So, to better understand why this has been such a challenge, let's back up a bit to why they wanted to investigate this in the first place.
The Siden Lab has been integrating parents and other embedded partners, like librarians, in their work for some time. They're considered integral staff members of a multidisciplinary research team, contributing to study design, data collection, and analysis. The lab has been keen to expand this model to other projects and wanted to find other examples of this kind of collaboration in the published literature, to learn from others, and also see what contribution they could make.
But they quickly hit a wall. Studies involving patient and parent partners were nearly impossible to find systematically. And even when they did find them, the contributions of those partners were rarely acknowledged or adequately described. And this posed a real problem. If you can't see partnership happening in the literature, you can't learn from it. You can't replicate it, and you can't give credit where credit is due.
So the team decided to investigate. They've embarked on a rapid scoping review. That's a way of surveying research that's already been done on a specific topic, using methods designed to get to results more quickly. They want to map out how patient partners are being recognized, or not recognized, in pediatric health research, and to understand how those partners are actually contributing throughout the research process.
And what they discovered was both encouraging and troubling. Patient partnership was referenced far more than they expected, but because it was inconsistently or inadequately described, the contributions of partners remained largely invisible.
So we're diving into a question that might seem simple at first. When patients and families help design and conduct research, what evidence can we find of their contribution? And this leads to ever more critical questions about power, equity, and ways of working that haven't evolved to meet today's realities.
And just a quick note before we continue. The Siden Lab focuses on pediatric palliative care research. Their embedded research partners are parents, not the children or patients themselves. Throughout this series, we'll be using patient partner and parent partner interchangeably, unless otherwise noted.
To start us off, we spoke with Colleen Pawliuk, the research librarian embedded in this pediatric health research team.
We always say patient partner or parent partner, but not everyone else is doing that same thing. So these were really, I think, planting some of the seeds that would help us kind of move down that road towards the scoping review. I think that was also probably part of it too, is kind of a lack of description of those things. So what was the title? What does this title mean in the research? But often also, what are these patient partners even contributing to these research projects? Because they've obviously had substantial contributions to be an author and, giving a lot to these research projects. And a lot of the time we were finding, it's not described what it is they've done.
And, there's a kind of invisibilization or even an erasure that happens when work isn't credited or properly described. As a research librarian, Colleen relates to this. The work of a librarian can be invaluable to the research process, but isn't often recognized, especially outside the core research team.
This idea of invisible labor comes from feminism. At first, it just referred to unpaid labor, such as housework. But over time, it's also extended to work that happens in paid employment that is underappreciated, underrecognized, or underpaid. Definitely relevant here.
So we're also kind of facing this as librarians where we're contributing to projects like a scoping review or systematic review, and our contribution is often erased from the work, and we call that kind of invisible labor. And I think you can tie that directly here too, where I think patient partners are substantially contributing to these research projects, and their labor is also being made invisible as well.
Anne-Mette Hermansen is an anthropologist and also the team's research coordinator. She helps us understand why this invisibility is such a problem.
It's sort of curious to talk about these people that you're working with, but you're not hearing that from those people themselves. When we talk about patient partners, they are engaged in research. The research is patient-oriented. It's really a different terminology that is not as clear as to what that means in practice, like what they've done, and also how we would credit that work to them. I don't think we have found an answer in our project, but that's a question that's being asked within the research community, and I'm hoping that answers will be found, but that's not where we're at yet.
Yeah, if you're a traditional researcher, your credentials are pretty clear. You likely have a PhD, you're affiliated with a university, and you have a title. But what about patient and parent partners?
There's not really the same kind of titles for patient partners, right? So you will have authors and it will be like Dr. So-and-so or PhD in this or that, or, their affiliation will be very clearly to this department at this university. There's sort of a structure around this. And I don't think we had even considered that if you're a patient partner, what does that sound like? That's not a formal degree. The affiliation may or may not be to a university. It might be to something else. Those were things we hadn't thought about.
The team initially thought this would be a simple project. Anne-Mette remembers her early assumptions.
We just curiously started out with a student project. We had a library student and we were like, can you take a look at the literature and just count how many articles you find that have patient partner author? And in my head, I thought, that's going to be 5 publications out there that have that. Not very many. But then the project really grew from there.
It grew because the reality was far more complex and far more widespread than anyone expected. The team discovered that patient partnership was happening much more than they thought, but it was largely invisible in the published literature, making it virtually impossible to learn from, to replicate, and to give proper credit.
So, the team decided to conduct what's called a scoping review, essentially mapping out what exists in the literature on this topic. They would search major databases for pediatric health research and look for evidence of patient-partner engagement.
And here's where things got tricky. Colleen, as the librarian, was tasked with creating the search strategy, and she quickly realized they had a problem.
I was starting to do some initial searches to kind of understand what wasn't working, essentially, and starting to realize that the extent of acknowledgement and especially authorship was much, much larger than we had assumed. But then also on kind of the flip side, that the challenge of finding this was much, 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 much harder as well, in that it's really, really challenging to search for patient-partnered or patient-oriented research because the way we describe it is not very consistent, and the way that we kind of tag them in all the databases we searched is not ideal.
The team encountered a bewildering array of terms. There's patient-oriented research, there's patient and public involvement, patient and public input, patient engagement, patient participation, family engagement, embedded patient partners. The list goes on.
Gabriel Zamma, or Gabby, is a research assistant on the project. She reflected on this challenge.
There's a lot of different ways that we describe patient-oriented research. There's a lot of different terms that are used. It's hard, I think, as a student or someone kind of just getting their toes wet in research to tease apart what everything means. to the public even. I think that might be really difficult to sort of understand really what's going on and to what extent there is engagement in research.
And here's Colleen again.
We have kind of grappled with terminology when we're presenting this scoping review to other people. And so we've kind of talked as a team, do we want to use patient-oriented research as kind of that umbrella term, or do we want to use some of the other terminology we found, which is, patient and public input, PPI from the UK. I think there's also patient and public involvement and engagement, which is like a newer version of that term.
The way databases index these studies made them nearly impossible to find systematically. If you search for patient participation, you'll get studies where patients participated as research subjects, which is not the same thing as patients being partners in designing and conducting the research.
It's the difference between being studied and being a co-investigator, a crucial distinction that can get lost in database searches.
The way that we kind of tag them in all the databases we searched is not ideal. It uses a much broader terminology, and you're going to get any sort of patient participation in the healthcare system.
So, how do you find something that's both widespread and nearly invisible? The team developed a rapid scoping review protocol with 3 core questions.
First, they wanted to know what is the prevalence of authorship or acknowledgement of patient partners in pediatric health research.
Second, what evidence is there of patient partners' involvement throughout the research process?
And third, how is patient partner engagement identified in the searchable fields and databases in things like titles, abstracts, keywords, or author affiliations?
To investigate these questions, they would search 3 major databases plus several specialized sources focused on patient engagement in research. These included repositories from the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute and the UK's National Institute for Health Research. Anne-Mette describes their approach.
That's part of the scoping review, both to look for what is there, what is reported, who is acknowledged, who is credited for the work they've done, patient partners, and who is not. We probably expected that we would be done by this point, but we're still looking through thousands of articles to try and tease this out.
Thousands of articles. And here's what makes this particularly challenging. They're looking for both presence and absence. They're looking for what's explicitly stated and what's conspicuously missing.
We're doing this scoping review, and we're both looking for something that we can see, and we're looking for something that we can't see. So we're both looking for the explicit descriptions of patient partners that have contributed to the research, what they've done, how they were engaged in the research process. But we're also keeping an eye out for those projects that do not have these descriptions.
Gabby describes the painstaking process of reviewing each paper.
I read through it in heavy detail. So I read every single section. I read the affiliations. I'll usually look up who the actual authors are if it's uncertain. Look at the acknowledgements. We look everywhere and try and see if there is engagement at all within the paper. And usually, if there is, what I found was that it was hidden in just like a 5-word sentence.
So at this point, we could ask, why does all this matter so much if the research is getting done and patients are involved? Do we really need to find and measure that involvement?
So I think highlighting this in a way that can help other teams learn from it, just like we wanted to learn from other projects and learn, okay, what are other people or other research teams doing with patient partners? If we erase that, we can never actually learn from other people, including kind of what worked, what didn't work. But we need these examples in the literature.
And there's also a fundamental issue of fairness and recognition.
A lot of the times, papers do include what authors do because we have that author contributions statement. And I think we just need to tweak that a little bit to make it clearer or kind of fit the mold for patient partners. and be very descriptive of what it is they're doing, at least in that author contribution section, but I actually think it should extend beyond that as well.
And there's something deeper here too, something about power and whose knowledge counts.
Research has been dominated by a specific group that's been high in power for a very, very long time. So having people who are embedded within the research team and participating in all steps throughout the research process where that's possible has been really, really valuable.
That's such a succinct summary of a really big issue. This episode, even this whole mini-series, it's really about power differential between traditional experts and partners who bring in expertise and experience outside the traditional research sphere.
The research enterprise has been set up to incentivize and acknowledge researchers in very specific ways, like with funding, appointments, authorship, CV, and career building. Now that research teams are expanding with all kinds of partners, like patient partners, like parent partners, like librarians, the current frameworks can fall short of appropriately acknowledging their work.
So, where does this leave us? The team published their protocol for this scoping review in 2025, and they're still working through those thousands of articles. Again, what they're documenting is both encouraging and concerning. There's more patient partnership happening than they initially thought, but much of it remains hidden, undescribed, and unsearchable.
The very innovations in research practice that could transform healthcare aren't always being captured in ways that allow others to learn from or build upon. Next episode, we'll be joined by Candace Behrens. She's a parent partner who joined the Siden Lab team and found herself doing research about parent partners in research. She has a lot to add to this conversation.
Please tune in to the next episode as we continue on this exploration with the Siden Lab research team.
Thank you to Colleen Pawliuk, Anne-Mette Hermansen, and Gabriel Zamma for participating in this episode. This episode was written and produced by Jennifer Johannesson and Emily Nicholas Engel in collaboration with the Siden Research Team. The Siden Research Team is supported by Canuck Place Children's Hospice and the Child Bright Research Network and is located at the BC Children's Hospital Research Institute in Vancouver. The Rapid Scoping Review is supported by the BC Children's Hospital Research Institute and Brain Behavior and Development. For a full transcript and for more information, please visit mattersofengagement.com.